The sun sets low in the sky, casting a warm glow over Vine as she sits on the bed of her arranged husband's bedroom. Her heart races with nervous anticipation as she adjusts the folds of her elegant gown. The fabric was shimmering in the fading light. Her breaths were stuck in her throat for their first meeting alone as she waited for him patiently. After an hour, Jungkook comes inside the room, his expressions still the same as he wore for everybody, stoic and lethal. He sees Vine, changed in her casual clothes, sitting on the bed waiting for him. Without saying anything or paying any attention, he went to his wardrobe and changed as well, although she expected a little more from him. After coming outside, he switched off the lights, and while putting off his watch, he said to her without looking at her, I will sleep on the couch today. Tomorrow, I will have another single bed in the room, and you will have to sleep there, because I can't sleep without my bed. That's. No. Jungkook didn't even complete that a word came out of her mouth itself, making Jungkook stop at his place. What? He asked in amazement. One. I mean, I can take the couch for one day if you can't sleep. No need, he said and laid down on the couch. For a few moments, neither of them spoke anything, but they couldn't sleep as well. Jungkook knew that she couldn't sleep as well, so he began. You must haven't thought about all of this turning out like this, right? But whatever you thought, you need to know that there is no need of having any kind of hopes with me. If this is day one, then it will stay like this forever. Her nervousness faded away after hours of lying down in the same place. Well, I did hope for something more. Jungkook, hopes often lead to disappointment. Get used to it. He said in a row, as if it was nothing for him to say something like this. His voice showed no remorse, which made Vine's heart sink, his words breaking through her heart, and she couldn't help but ask him about it. Do you regret marrying me? She hoped for a different answer from him. Even if he faked it, she wanted to have some hope for her life in the future. But then his voice came, shattering her hope in pieces. Regret is a wasted emotion, Vine. I simply accept what is. But then again, as he said, hopes often lead to disappointments. This marriage was a mistake, Vine, for both of us, he stated, and I never promised you happiness. Vine, I never expected it from you, Jungkook. Foolish of me to hope otherwise. Hope? He scoffed, the sheer pain hidden in his eyes that she couldn't see because of the darkness in the room. Hope, the word that is a torture for him. He gave it up years ago, and he doesn't want to gain it back again for any reasons. Vine, I thought you could see past your anger, Jungkook. She didn't need to look in his eyes for her to know how much pain he carried in his heart. His breaking voice was enough. My anger defines me, he whispered. It's who I am. She sighed. I thought I could make you see me, Jungkook. Jungkook, you were mistaken. I see you perfectly, and I'm not impressed. Her heart shattered at his words again, and she took some breaths to accept everything as it is. But it was too much for her at once. She didn't have anything else to say. He didn't need to say anything else for her to understand. She understood it completely. There's no such thing as hope for him, nor for the people who live with him. And she was one of them now. He turned his back on her and slept a deep sleep. After a week, Vine sat in the living room reading a book. Her life wasn't all bad, except that she didn't have a loving husband. She had everything other than that: a luxurious house, freedom, and safety. But her heart was still empty as she longed for something other than all of this. Suddenly, Jungkook stormed into the house. His footsteps echoed ominously in the hallway. His fists were clenched and his jaw was set in a hard line, anger boiling within him. Vine looked up at him from her book, her heart sinking at the sight of his expression. Jungkook, what's wrong? She asked tentatively, sensing the tension radiating off him. But he didn't respond. Instead, he went past her without a word, his heavy footsteps echoing through the house. Vine's heart raced with apprehension as she followed him cautiously. In the kitchen, after gulping down a cup of water, Jungkook slammed the cupboard doors shut with unnecessary force, causing Vine to flinch at the loud noise. Jungkook, please calm down, she pleaded softly, her voice trembling with fear. Why can't you just leave me alone? He snapped suddenly, his voice sharp and cutting, his mind not wanting to have anyone by his side at that time, wanting to be alone. But maybe his heart was different, something he didn't want to encounter. Vine felt a pang of hurt at his words. She had never seen him like this before, and it frightened her. I'm sorry if I did anything wrong, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. But Jungkook didn't seem to hear her, his anger consuming him completely. He paced back and forth in the kitchen, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. She stood at his side all the time, but she didn't know she'd have to pay a price for that. Unable to bear the tension any longer, she placed a soothing and warm hand on his shoulder, which made him stop at his place, his heartbeat coming to its normal pace again as he stared at her. Jungkook, please talk to me. What's bothering you? Jungkook, I don't want to talk about it. He tried to shrug it off before he took his anger out on her. Fine, but we can't just ignore it. We're in this together. Her voice soft and healing, assuring him that there's someone who asks about him if anything's wrong with him. Jungkook, I said I don't want to talk about it, Vine. Can't you understand that? He raised his voice a bit to make her go away. He took a deep breath and lowered his voice for her. I don't need your help, okay? I can handle it on my own. Vine, seeing a glint of hope in him, didn't stop there. But that's not how a relationship works. We're supposed to support each other. Jungkook, I don't need anyone's support. I'm fine. Fine. You're not fine, Jungkook. I can see it in your eyes. Jungkook, stop pretending like you know me, Vine. You don't. Fine. I may not know everything about you, but I know that you're hurt right now. I don't want your pity, Vine. Just leave me alone. He started going outside the kitchen, but then heard, Vine, I'm not pitying you, Jungkook. I care about you. He stopped at his place without turning to her and said in a low voice, his fists still clenched at his sides, well, you shouldn't. It's not worth it. He went away, and all of her efforts to make a place for herself in his heart went in vain. She was stuck between wanting to accept this behavior of his for her whole life and wanting to still have hope from him, wanting to not give up. She knew she could fix him if she does it patiently, but she doesn't know how much longer she can do it. She was tired of it. She was thinking between these options when she suddenly heard a glass breaking down in his room. Then she heard him screaming, loud thuds on the floor, as if he was beating the floor with his knuckles. She was terrified of it all, but at the same time, she decided not to be stuck between those two choices anymore. She decided to fix him, his anger, the reason of it, and him. She would fix it all, no matter how long it takes. After an hour, she went inside his room as slowly as she could because she was still afraid of him hurting her in the process. Her eyes widened when she saw the blood coming out of his hand, pieces of glass still stuck in his hand. Tears filled his eyes, and he sat on the floor with empty eyes and expressions. A sudden scream left her mouth, and she put her palms on her mouth. Jungkook looked up at her when he noticed her, again with no expressions, nothing in him. Everything is over, Vine, he murmured. I can't take it anymore. She saw him taking one of the broken pieces of glass in his hand and put it on his wrist to slit it.